Asia's leadership. Trump will withdraw from the Paris Agreement. This term he'll move faster and without retreat. Sean Hart, 1110. The world is bracing for Trump to withdraw from Paris this time. Move faster and less retreat with Trump. Not collaboratively the U.S. only country, not a part of U.S. has to raise question Trump's political to the press with the global side. Trump recently planned change to host one Trump takes office to the private request to withdraw, taking your take back on 3 years previously. This term is different. The last withdrawal calls were ripples on tidal wave. Sean Hart, 24. Trump will out of Paris wants to call this condemnation to reduce withdrawal of South ripples. Robin tidal different news here. Term clause for contracts at this time. Trump under the Oval Office 20. 17 and 6 months of reduction to Trump because second colleagues have after bombing select to Trump and bombing after first day of office. This time Trump work right away with this theory at a different time with leading U.S. relations and withdrawal sidelines the U.S. from international diplomacy and allows China to fill in. Sean Hart 11 tell U.S. to leave the country to lead international about clean energy, allow China to have the American Chinese influence and increase U.S. withdrawal to lose the U.S. Now China will step in a very different way that undermines the U.S.'s reputation as a reliable global partner and turns the U.S. into a laughing stock globally. Leo 1126 expert for the second withdrawal to the international reputation the U.S. revenue recommended security trust powers and one thing that committed to outstanding effects relations and negotiations decisions to the unpredictable policy to play a really important role in U.S. leading pressing the U.S. no longer playing that role. How did that progress towards changes needed around the federal government? How are we seeing the change instead of federal government lasting lofty stock globally? It spills over to destroy leadership on every issue. Boycott 1122. Trump will lead a small handful of representatives of the U.S. behind too much country working in the U.S. boycotting commitment quantity box across the U.S. The end of positional leadership more generally in other global issues. Climate change as exemplified by the Paris Agreement is a key reflection of the U.S. Is leadership capacity on all other issues. Jackson 22 is pandemic critical role strong national leadership and then the goal to influence the U.S. climate actors and outreach with country central pillar of the most national priorities of an integral part for policy for trade, health, security, and credible U.S. leadership is essential to protect, strengthen, and constrain adversaries. House 24, China, Russia, nuclear, direction, alignment, shared out, and take us to the U.S. world order with the historic preparation of force system, even diplomacy, reinforce U.S. goals of policy, never change these influence, protect U.S. strength principles, will affect counter alignment system, along with partnership, trying to provide predictability, circulation, or how to coordinate policy, meet challenges, and failure is existential. It invites numerous nuclear conflicts and prevents global cooperation over global existential risk, but adversarial decline is inevitable in the long run, so management now is key. Exactly one said, a hollow rationalist and results of facts reveal transparency versus Russia, China, around an inclusive diplomatic hostility, U.S. makes room for aggressive activity, U.S. economically dominated to consider speaking the long-term punishment of population taking productivity erosion, solidifying uniform living, and responsibility for wars, regular to defend types of desperate redemptions of Russia, the Ukraine, China, Taiwan, ICS, and then ICS companies use the types of destruction, trees, all Korean, how they sense evil, that which got terrorism, military forces, and undermine international orders, by which they fear to live with refugees from between U.S. and China, as well as being a crash and otherwise trains to the road super forever, replace policy works, the networks collapse, new spark race will share with copy co-op, and a new growth, climate genetics, and challenges with accelerated interconnectivity, the Asian, U.S. and South Carolina, promoting Russian diplomacy, Washington, for Ukraine, connections, scale of Russian, Ukraine, future with diplomatic outreach, defense is wrong, the convergence of adversaries magnifies the threat and furthers the necessity of strong U.S. leadership to rebuke it. Rand 19 strong phenomenon, a dangerous phenomenon to occur after rapping Russian leaders and power global medicine and even overturning the system review reduce lower rates for fair express carbon house Russian evolution of hard expression of the run for chapters and hot house global American the key here in times of hermit red flags to be ready to have policy created by this function of the church alliance team so what it says to the function of a war once place this goal of spiritual crisis and becomes the U.S. standing victory autocratic coalition independently the collapse of institution generates a self-reinforcing cycle that erodes every country on conflict that ensures people are annihilation since and all 15 distorted emergency fuels lives of quantum economic worker crisis crisis isolation flash and and fall labor resources death for the liberal government cause of institution results in their world being more tight arms of the Ukraine each has yes but foreign has made by isolation as a red Russia will move in Georgia and here's what accidents this is trying to drive the assets that assure companies ability to one to fluid television critical isolation factor new violations of critical conflict and threat or emerging call power to like see so as an SCS threat as well as supply chain to national attachments and U.S. leadership is key to prevent authoritarian China-led orders one from 24 competition between U.S. and China competition for is not merely competition with that which China into the economic military take advantage of and U.S.-led order person translated and has crucial that allow all authoritarian values and China actively promotes a liberal world order centered around authoritarianism. EO 21 is speaks for this in the United States to the autonomous leadership party sets for us with some arguments it's not expert ideology players to express authoritarianism around the world uniquely regard China the liberal model security authorized and consistent along the student process of how academic discourse control media and developing contributions of capitalized centralized party play press press this business China sophisticated surveillance and training fragile governance economies and the overseas speed of the explicit political integration of the sovereign country president who is a playing still liberal player and it's a 60 days or so from creative penetrating power organization and helping CCP with the rise of global order and global authoritarianism structurally increases the propensity for every access to risk. Battlefield 23 totalitarian states and conflict back force ideology type of constitution shows how arbitrary rule of the worst wanting to see the totalitarian states like cooperative back risk and everything for activities risk of extinction by the biotech totalitarian states and totalitarian regimes totally enforcing the last long life of top spring more than 10 non-humane spend heightened risk of extinction, and thus the plan the United States federal government should adopt a policy maintaining its membership in the Paris Agreement. The second advantage is climate finance. Trump withdrawing from Paris would undermine U.S. commitment to climate finance. John Hart 24, Trump believes that Paris wants to withdraw undermine global efforts to reduce global climate around countries. The expectation of Trump's withdrawal from the Paris framework drag down international negotiations on climate finance and COP29. Gaskell, Monday, 11/12, 11, the elections progressive with COP29 and make clear withdrawal from Paris where first crisis is after international management with regard to reduce commitment to negotiate global shocks to the top of climate funding and the consequences of this. Expectation would not commit the U.S. to the new goal less ambitious, maintaining leadership and letting the expectation is key to scaling up climate finance commitments at COP30. Withdrawal from Paris creates a domino effect on other countries' commitments. DJ Group, Coal and COP29 this time will bring meaningful progress and final clearly criticism the future force of popular election interpretation to U.S. climate slowly distributed domino effect in terms of other nations climate strategy overall people COP to win and failed to deliver COP never trust for 3 days for COP29 and the impact of negotiations the potential disintegration domino effect following the U.S. proceeding press materialized with momentum from considering the COP 30 face more pressure and U.S. commitment to reduce commitment to climate finance under Paris underlines other donors ambition deep and Cheney 11-13 in trouble undoubtedly of technical common policy and climate disaster and touch on major emergency U.S. citizens and that makes commitment to the hard to reduce funding damage ambition other donors and climate finance funds adaptation developing countries but increasing commitment is key cost of 23 developing countries pushing impact climate change to the left resources of protecting our climate change making a vulnerable many countries limited resource capacity to down climate change that's why vulnerability increases potential donors less stable countries implementing alternative financial system political instability and instability being ruled by economic instability in developed countries that finance developing countries financing is insufficient adaptation is key climate change is happening now emissions reduction alone fails EEA 12 climate change happening to reduce emissions new impact of foreign cars to reduce climate change that has people like longer where people adaptation methods to increase and they were only produce disaster as U.S. climate financing prevents accidental failed global development and surmount barriers of global catastrophic risk mitigation. Judge 23 forced down the release 2012 to discuss U.S. 25% of all emission key challenges to reducing emission justifying their voting trust. The quality of forces to active human security to start the responsibility takes membership structural litigation finance for development of the key political issue with the negotiation of political question of countries fortunately impact high debt of vulnerability low active purposes for the correct abuse correct oversight well finance the GDG shall drive the secret cycle of consumer things everything for further challenge structure structuring aid with development of the GDG shall purposes nuclear what can AI risk pandemic vaccine if everybody will use it about trying to replace and mitigate most probably U.S. justice not often financial assistance country rejecting that and foundation international history we can't get politics type of fact rascal risk across sector that gets the political deadlock and climate development is a risk filter that outweighs and turns every impact long into our 22 developments and indicator tech power understores and currents of property future reducing only really risks like companies countries add to the price of institutions for improved quality of governance navigate access to risk reducing risk of data risk expanding against the poverty increased parentheses and income improves health of the invest economic population resilience dynamics poverty causing instability from terrorism crime and global governance is critical to risk reduction it tells catastrophic warming nuclear arms racing pandemics and others Flowers 24 reducing ways to limit catastrophic and climate production adequate warming extremes in the day creating compound attacks anywhere directly close opportunity conflicts through challenges other words extreme poverty and escalating society to where market cities making arsenal rising geopolitical tension destabilizing global enlargement increase in negative connotations stability resilience of institutions fragile war security integration independence due to the corrected addressing corrected way millennium tech pandemic some community units will overcome no will allow numerous threats to the training institution ability to find effective ways to squad in multilateral settings and food security cause global war free and Ellis 24 food security care about political system catalyst for instability will not be the human kind of interface to access to geopolitical flashpoint we can all interconnected committees as escalate other flashpoints to the Ukraine SCS Rusty Schwartz and now Afghanistan has any effects terrorist use the cycles nuclear and 22 new gubernatorial civilization business turned by high terrorist over weapons causing remarkably easy one or head of in Moscow the Israel terrorist escalate pushing war changes and uncertainties in the fog of war. I said the point right?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Lack of adaptation is a threat multiplier. CFR 24 Columbus threat multiplier making existing violence terrorists and experts like violence confusion drug ability high spike for the onset of violence making worse present average temperatures like the increase in the incidence of civil war. Marked it civil war. So to clarify, that card was above the last two cards I read. That's the CFR card, and it's marked as Civil War.
Adopt a policy maintaining its membership in Paris. What does that mean?
It means that neither Trump nor Biden will withdraw from the Paris Agreement.
Neither Trump nor Biden will withdraw.
Yep.
So does it do an affirmative action, or does it just say that like when Trump gets into office, like he's just not feeling it, we stay in Paris?
Most likely way the plan would happen is something like executive self-restraint.
Okay, what are...
We think that constitutes the adoption of the policy.
Okay, sure. By executive self-restraint, does like Trump have to support Paris? Like, and like does Congress, like after, like, you know, he's threatening to withdraw from Paris now, you have evidence that says that freaks out countries, makes investors scared. Does he support Paris Active Plan?
What does support mean?
Well, right now Trump's talking about withdrawing from Paris. Does the plan attitudinally fiat that Trump supports the plan?
It fiats that the
Trump
executive.
cannot start the procedural moves required to
Okay,
withdraw
but through
from
the
Paris.
entire 4 years of his presidency, he can just lambaste
I
that
mean,
he
if
hates
you're
Paris
gonna
and
make
he
an
wants to
argument
withdraw.
that he just says he hates Paris, it doesn't matter because durable fiat
Well,
maintains that we get
well,
that
okay,
the
to
plan
be
is
clear,
durably
to be clear,
implemented.
you've got
I
a
don't
host of
withdraw.
evidence that right now the squo was cause extinction because countries are scared about the threat of leaving Paris. Like,
No,
And they're
they're
only
scared
scared
of-
about it to the extent that it's possible.
Yeah.
Obviously, the plan means it's not possible.
Yeah.
Trump can't withdraw from Paris.
America First policy was poorly received in Europe. If Trump throughout his 4 years can frequently just be like, we want to withdraw from Paris, Paris is horrible, why do you solve the case?
Okay, so there is a difference in the signal that's generated by material withdrawal versus
Allies
other
viewed it
things
as a signal that
ancillary.
America was
So,
retreating.
I
All
can-
of your cards
wait,
are
wait,
a
wait,
signal.
Hold up, so there's a additional layer of nuance that's required here. The first time around, there were a bunch of procedural barriers, like a protocol in the Paris Agreement, that literally prevented Trump from withdrawing from Paris materially until after the end of the Trump
No,
administration.
this is totally
Day
separate.
one. No, okay, what is the
Okay,
difference?
I'm asking the question, so yes, we agree that there are procedural issues from him withdrawing. But if Trump can say he can withdraw, what is the difference
Well,
between?
our point is that in the last administration, he said he could withdraw, but the reason it didn't matter is because there were material barriers to him withdrawing.
Is
We think
exec-
the app is another
Okay,
example of
okay,
a
sure.
material barrier.
Is executive
to withdrawal.
self-restraint announced?
The plan is announced.
Okay, so Trump has to announce that he's never gonna withdraw from Paris.
Yeah.
Okay, I wanna go to the second advantage, climate financing. This is all about if Trump did withdraw. Does the plan do anything if Trump won't withdraw on this web?
We've read evidence that says he will withdraw the status quo.
Okay, does the plan do an MDI?
Yeah, Paris includes an MDI.
Paris includes an MDI, but
Mhm.
it doesn't mandate an MDI.
The word adopt in the resolution modifies
Okay,
the
sure,
clean
yeah,
energy
yeah.
policy,
This will
which
do
includes
this.
an MDI.
1316.
The one in CSAP.
The order will be 6, leadership, and then finance.
Yeah, but I guess it would take a while for us to get it.
Yeah.
Okay, I think I've got it.
Okay.
Yeah, one, two, three.
Adrienne, you good?
Sorry, it's scanning for viruses. Please hold.
First off is the advantage counterplan. The United States should force we're adopting new terms implementing further restriction on immigration, refuse non-climate policies of isolationism and Spanish wars against Russia, China, Iran, and North Korea, engage in democracy promotion missions, commits to climate finance. Donald J. Trump should not speak publicly or attempt to fire Jerome Powell. Next off is the court's counterplan. The United States federal judiciary should liberalize environmental standing doctrines by establishing that severe environmental harm satisfy individual has the state and performance will hold that a constitutionally guaranteed right to clean environmental rights and adherence to the Paris Agreement. All the norms of international custom forbid executive withdrawal from Paris and future climate accords and hold that executive is obligated to adhere to their 2016 promise and issue an injunctive against a government or private sector of action that violates the Paris Agreement. It competes and solves the case instead of relying on executive restraint. The counterplan kickstarts a judicial administrative reduction framework that inaugurates a binding legal obligation and is comparatively better. Judiciary using executive power to issue remedies and anything with legislation or forming as even directing defendant the act of referendum in order to providing only placing tax emission made to prevent and then limiting pollution emission under remedy by asking the into remedies will look to relief in public interest doctrine encourage discourse to mitigate our hard environment courts into defendants from emitting issuance of tax decrees and judicial protection framework and causes of litigation future and our decision making and adequate representation courage depletion of resources and negotiation future and argument for the age range fact giving entity is right to new doctrine human environmental emissions through joining in a position the press stamp permitting suits for general evidence environment to harm or eliminate the political question doctrine. Link 224 written PQ law for economic legislation is all for technical means to be never overstepping into the question of the court's argued. New being for submitting the political tax ordering FD to shop competence executive of submission would exceed authority to really significant in the air. Power of judiciary today, particularly in injunction cases to land or warfare, increasing political or active judicial legislation PQ more open. These results usually that is supremacy over constitutional provisions SOB is claimant is these two judicial traditional law back in PQ later rules and immigrant law in the US. Overturning PQ prevents internal corruption by defense contractors is number 10. Contractors like prevent suit on November injuries or reason of even a small practice in control of preventing suits being filed the reason SOPO PQ of definite responsibility universally contracted with PQ individual firm liability basis as opposed to cost effective only by preventing suits if costs were factors and perceived effectiveness not exist the PQ will be a major factor to litigation coming to be a disrupt from contract is not going to be profound extinction judicial accountability is key. Paul 24. Alliance contractors of Louis Vuitton conflicts when he reached President High Test exemplary conflicts in the arms race and me China Africa includes by security challenges to US arms race conflicts conflict resolution committees over some of the locking moving up raise and on the internal committees and influence the lobbying and human and finding civil super arms with intervention expense the police department of incentive engagement regardless of consequences in the second world and makes including armament in Israel Mali reach from testing impacts to testing the environmental break theories after making the political contribution holding accountability of the peace of peace and generation transparency approaches stability over conflict. Next off is TMBI market-based instruments report a price or quantity-based instruments that force agents to internalize the cost of pollution. This explicitly excludes financial support, voluntary agreements, and command control. Page 9. MBAs make the agents to internalize the cost of subsidy, voluntary agreements, direct the RTGs to the over taxes, levy GT, making activities, quantity-based allowances, influential listing to price access, and quantity-based instruments, whether it's a tax on inputs of infrastructure rendered in forward received right down from output or upstream inventory or internalized cost of emissions in the United States refers to areas under U.S. jurisdiction, gravitating the defense of U.S. and means all places subject to U.S. jurisdiction of the U.S. Decarbonization and reduction of emission reduction produced by the combustion of fossil fuels from the aspect of decarbonization of fossil fuels representing food, zero carbon, energy, and electrifying as many sectors as possible. Vote NED 1 limits additional aspects of the topic to unpredictable sectoral subsets and financial mechanisms. 2 grounds, core Ds, assuming economic and political costs, not minor administrative tweaks. Next off is the customary law counterplan. The International Court of Justice should rule that a customary principle of the harm prevention compels adoption of a policy maintaining its membership in the Paris Agreement. Text will be sent. That solves the case and creates a prior binding obligation for customary international law to replace national or treaty-based interest. Whereas money 24. Courts are asked to determine responsibility in relation to climate action to compromise procedural obligation to customary law prevents international resolve of premise on violation of the order that the treaty of prevention imposes responsibility to attract the not to be environmental master order to fighting relative whether it is a single time environmental addition to a point of interest declaration of CILs prior binding caps external threats code of 16 CILs been directed by modified treaty with general government of any rule may be subject to a problem international legal structure more complicated global problems including organization climate and WMD global solutions. Next off is the Canada DA. The United States federal government should adopt policy that forces tariffs on Canadian imports. Canadian oil inputs on the U.S. are high now and sets it increase 118 U.S. oil inputs from the highest back to 2010 strong output. The plan permanently reduces demand for oil, decreasing imports mainly 18 as the big reduction in use of fossil fuels and the long-term economic demand for renewables fell demand and lead to a fall in price of diminished rents and revenues for producing countries. Strong oil exports to the bedrock of Canadian leadership views is key. Vehicle oil intent. Canada's well used to removal success trading with U.S. policies and having economic impact and police compared to the U.S. dollars market for Canadian imports 65% of Canadian imports leading sector oil. Canadian leadership prevents the breakdown of multilateral institutions extinction. Canadian to reinvigorate multilateral education and the to break down Canada trade and influence unless we have multilateral we will solve problems that threaten the world. Next off is the gas state fracking is strong but climate policy structures domestic hydrocarbons. Most fracking widely used to produce oil increasing U.S. energy currently leading to against the forms of which the effect of introducing government to limit climate policy answering matters most. Investors cannot quantify by the future regs increase relative stock prices and financial performance for value of oil and gas fracking firms face higher emission resilience more value or face financial difficulties. Strong domestic energy reduces Russian influence limits European dependence and enhances political stability. Walking to for use when the leader represent if you want to effectively control the rest LNG range of development of key projects future energy and infrastructure in this year's and global supplies would be explosive supplies and South Africa and EU to roll over face of Russian aggressive over land Russian energy increasing U.S. LNG energy to bring credits from Russia to federal government revenues and all the in the day cost U.S. LNG export equity not to be for BC and Russia forecast to fall weakness greenlands Russian military aggression nuclear war freedom between war Russian military budget had lowering high oil prices on a low internet and will machine development of tactical nukes and was lower threshold for use of nukes some military buildup organized by the short-term and high intensity wars of the use current as vast and Asian nuclear arsenal leadership advantage. 1. No hegemony impact Bando 23. The U.S. ability to intervene and near China so well with the great identity during world revolution the U.S. and the world doesn't push much anything threatens American interests in the Middle East decline. China rich focus on this one Washington things to involve and invade other countries. American officials make hostile Putin over NATO expansion is time for Washington to drop 2. Hegemony is unsustainable failure to retrench guarantees accidental transition wars and shatters cooperation over accidental threats between 23. The U.S. is overextended military involvement into frequently relative military means effort to maintain a primacy in possessing integrated the alliance for the U.S. and develop the most dangerous war primacy. American primacy can be used to no nation and places frequently as receivable by some reality research and dialogue harmonizes will reduce Trump foreign policy, the policy towards China is based on average mindset. China is only one of the people most harming the world, which makes stemming from average by the US agenda. This can involve overreaction to make world overconfident and irresponsible propagation. China faces pollution, aging population, limited resources, and the benefits is not the best coach and benefits from all culture and no freedom, freedom and opportunity for people for solution and direct towards the competition without a brand. Ways of the Chinese favor modernization of praise that Egypt and American president never used research for the homophobic place competition with peaceful coexistence, only competition for constructive development, climate change, and pay to live world again or desert security cooperation, increase the change of conflict, and only they were option for co-ops and action to threats. 3. Clinging drives Russia China access and numerous security limits, extinction from miscap and international escalation across 24. Arms control Germany communication, even safeguards avoid escalation. We reach in the flooding point where Russia will the nuclear escalation from Little Washington drive into Russian policy arms control over the post with the Russians and FU will prove not of the nukes US to Russia China will find out resisting American military position being handled with greater inclusion, space cooperation and exercise nations to also commit to training for the pollution and continue expansion of nuclear relations. Make cooperation for the space over AI a risk of escalating to nuclear only increase. 4. Retrenchment maintains essential partnership while avoiding escalatory spirals. Leaving 24. Germany using government and the use of embrace the opportunity for space order is relevant, realistic, and balanced with multiple global US civil harmony, cooperation and everything we manage arbitration and isolation with critical interest in the Pacific Europe, the US and battles carefully restrain the path to security. 5. Democratic peace is statistically disproven. Its conflict driving Shiba. 21. Deputy says organized a lot of the same peace as culture and making looks that variables to the definitive non-common cause that may be unobservable generating government relation we remain fully understood empirically. We as society of VA having the account of engineering democracy not have a pacifying evidence of countries are more likely to attack the non-6. Democracy causes makes disease control impossible. Chapter 2, COVID experimental public first when the democracy's ability to with crisis again that faces disease and political retreat tragedy affects the democracy are unable to cope with crisis. 7. NATO is an effective tower. 17. NATO will get less affected the world is fundamentally different from at times NATO is one stage not able to answer get already reminder that NATO tracker is Afghanistan and Libya or Ukraine is a result of interfered by NATO problematic that share responsibility US upload ropes inside NATO. Finance advantage 1. Rigorous empirical studies disprove and development impacts distributor 23. Growth is not made out to be relevant increase in the situation so they have growth like which world orders things must be paid for they think so much more than world things searching is common the search for growth and budgets efforts is for people poverty such as total business or environmental affluence is increased inequality to grow. 2. Failed states are total bogus and unattributable to governance. 1% the problem follows from weakness there's what studies most durable the first total as Patrick 1 is an include what is talking about how little evidence is from budget action independent variable distinguished conflict and insecurity explanation for associationalized specific towards government challenges not explanation with a big notion of failed state free global governance is impossible. Beckley 22 good to have a global government can be assumed history comes from little confidence with strongest sort of will to the competition democracies for common authorities and government competition is forging new university total orders of inclusion fear reform the bedrock of no different more dual driver negative dynamic actually scratch this card. 4. Terrorism is not existential. Walt 16. Oh, some women extravagant threats, they never come close to troubling the government. When you millions of their neglect, majority or incompetent, even the best assured that they do say stages will attack and cause monetary people of orchestrating complicated job. None opposes existential threats. 5. COVID and unstable weather patterns, thump food wars. There's no impact. Must be 18. Little weird that the food increases conflict. Market food increases conflict.
Okay. Starting. The course counterplan, how does it compete?
The act is like executive self-restraint, so it does not, so the counterplan does not adopt, it does not do a clean energy policy, and it does not mandate the plan.
Cool.
There are probably some other words in the 2NC, but those are the 3 aspects.
Awesome. The Canadian oil disad, the link is what?
The plan requires compliance with Paris, or at least induces global action against climate change. If you solve your advantage, then you certainly link to the DA, because our argument is that doing those things requires a transition away from oil, and that would be disastrous for Canada's
All of our
economy.
internal links are about leadership and the symbol of U.S. involvement, not material decarbonization. What is the link to the disad?
I totally disagree with that characterization. There's multiple lines in 1AC evidence that indicates that the plan spurs decarbonization, but if you also know link out of this DA, we can obviously read evidence that says U.S. compliance and support for Paris will lead to decarbonization.
The impact card says Canada can strengthen its influence unless we have multilateral. We won't solve problems that threaten the world. Where do you think this says Canadian leadership key to solve extinction?
I mean, you've like picked out random words from this card, but it's a list of different kind of global challenges that Canada is able to take a lead on, and says that's only possible with global economic.
Like what?
Well, you read a 1AC impact about things like NATO and alliance share, you said
Wait,
that
but this is not about NATO.
Well, we read a card that says Canada's key to things like cyber, arms control, etc.
Wait, where?
Like also like
Wait,
like,
the card does not say cyber or arms control anywhere. You're just making
pretty
it
sure.
up.
I'm not-
You've read evidence that just says like laundry list of
Wait, but it
random
seems like
threats
you
and
haven't
said
read
multilat
impact.
is key.
That's
We've
fine.
read evidence that says
You're
only
good.
Canada
You're
access
good.
versus
The net benefit to
multilateralism.
each counterplan.
Ports is internal, CIL is internal, and the advantage counterplan is everything or could be everything if we take a plan.
Cool. Status of adopted.
The status quo is always a logical option.
Against new plans and new advantages.
Okay. The
I didn't
impact.
hear that.
Against new plans and new advantages, we get conditional.
Okay. The impact to, okay, could you explain to me the scenario on hedge bad for Russia?
Sure. Our evidence indicates that it leads Russia to develop a closer alliance based off mutual convergence of interest with China, and that although hegemony may be sustainable absent that alliance, with that alliance, hegemony is certainly unsustainable, and it emboldens those two actors to act more aggressively compared to a world in
Okay, so
which
to
the U.S. were
clarify-
to entrench and acknowledge
So
those
it
countries'
seems like-
own spheres of influence.
I understand. So it seems like U.S. leadership is bad because it emboldens Russia. Then on the gas disad, the impact says, the impact card and the interlink card say that U.S. energy dominance is good to deter Russia.
We've
because
made
they're
a
scared
really
of US
contingent
influence.
claim that the thing that funds Russian aggression is gas revenues, so the loss of gas revenues is a necessary condition to deter war.
Not necessarily. The card you read says that the EU relying on Russia is bad in the
Yes,
because
the
it causes
reason that
Russian
that's bad
aggression.
is because when they actually attack NATO countries, the EU and other countries will be forced to rely on Russian gas, which enables coercion and also is what funds those wars in the first place. And so it's a prerequisite for them to do things like fund their military. Our evidence says it gets to things like modernization as well as force recruitment.
Sure, that's fine. The interlink to the LNG disad, why do you think the plan collapses domestic energy?
Our evidence is pretty clear that climate commitments have a perceptual effect that the U.S. will adopt further decarbonization policies, and that is something that
Have you read
leads to
evidence
empirically
about
reductions in investments for gas, because if they
Have you read
anticipate
evidence about
that the
climate?
transition is speeding up, they won't want to invest in gas because
Well,
of the
what evidence
transition
says
risk
they
that kind of
see the
infrastructure is
app as a
prone to.
precursor to other decarbonization policies. You're missing
The knowledge
interlink
evidence
part.
is pretty clear that things like international climate commitments will directly affect the gas industry. And
Right.
also, like, some important lines is that the card alludes to the existence of climate policy uncertainty that occurs as a result of government statements as well as climate commitments. So it certainly leads to the perception that future climate policies will happen, because why would we commit to the Paris Agreement if we weren't going to actually comply with those targets? It literally creates a target that
Okay, yeah.
requires the downscaling of the gas industry.
Okay, we're just gonna keep it this. You didn't say the last that, right?
Not
No,
yet.
or- yeah, okay.
What is the internal benefit to the court's counterplan? Like, which plank is it predicated on?
All of them, given it has the judiciary enact climate action, which brings the
Okay.
The one that matters probably the most is standing requirements, and the parts, I guess all of them, beyond Paris at this point, I don't know. Like, the counterpoint will say that standing requirements allows the breaking of the PQD and enact, like, forcing action across climate policies such as Paris.
Wait, the terminal impact to the court's counterplan says that maintaining high U.S. military spending is good to deter security challenges abroad. Why is that not in conflict with
It
it?
says the complete opposite. We've said that military contracting is bad and that there are not checks on them.
Okay.
It's actually totally in line with that.
Okay, start back. TMBI, the Advantage Counterplan, the CIL Counterplan, the Customary Law Counterplan, the Courts Counterplan, the Canada DA. Give me a second to take a little more, but we had 9:37. I'm gonna start now. Sorry. Okay.
There's gonna be a new doc, yeah?
I'm gonna send one more if that's okay.
The other one just came in, so.
Okay, cool. Stop.
Okay, so old doc and a new doc?
Yeah, I just forgot
That's
to
fine.
get the answers to the LNG.
I know. We're all on that.
Yeah, and put that at the bottom of the order. I can repeat the whole thing.
I just got a second doc.
Okay. Is anybody not good? Okay, fantastic. So Michigan is good, Adrienne, you're fine? They say hegemony bad and fails at the top. 1. U.S. leadership is key to ensure converging revisionist threats from China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea. Signs of retreating by testing the United States to resolve which causes nuclear conflict in multiple theaters. It's Haas and Beckley. Interlocking adversary threats guarantee global war. Even if China alone is peaceful, U.S. leadership is key to ensure other revisionist states to brains evidence. 2. United States leadership is key to global governance. It shifts away from the liberal order collapse systems to cooperatively resolve international threats. It causes extinction for a host of issues like pandemic proliferation and emerging tech. That's Beckley evidence. The impact of the LNGDA is a contradiction with the hegemony impact. The internal link is that domestic energy dominance is good because it ensures Russia and China. That concedes that maintaining a United States-led order is good. 3. Retrenchment fails. You can't access world without a hegemony for cost of transition wars. 4. Hedges sustainable 124. Until recently, China over the U.S. Those graphics reality go down and never mind. So China will go to the U.S. and China gets back to the neighbors who move closer to the Middle East. Arab region see Iran as the threat to the region. America remains the only mouse for keeping China. Gas China replace another non-Western institution that continue to lead inside of knowledge, tech innovation, academia, think tanks, art and culture. 5. Pursuit of leadership inevitable, which non-unique certain past branch survive fully back, would exacerbate violence, stability, raising God's America from later nervous conditions, and America without return. Europe must be locked up against the Middle East commands vital energy resources, strategic geography. 6. Hegemony solves the Russia-China alliance. They're aligned now, but lead leadership through diplomacy and deterrence prevents them from regressing. Leadership does not cause Russia-China alliance. Let us get 20 Russia-China partnership cause U.S. political natives not obvious sources defending simply a desire to prevent military after neglect. They say democracy is bad. No, China exports an ideology and a technology that pushes other countries towards authoritarianism, which structurally increases our vulnerability to existential risks. That's our Edel and Belfield evidence. Best studies for democracy is best to combat disease. Constant 22 significant excess desperation from democracies where instead of better policies are confident about the vulnerability sport of reporting is considered without obviously spreading public statistically to all said versus schedules of the state of the art network doctors try to lead on where sounds something about the dead needs to be confident with free flow of info allow citizens to be heard at combination of democratic institutions with IC about the necessary advancement of democracy to take out precarious positive side effects. We did not read the NATO impact of the 1EC advantage to climate finance solves development and it does work our evidence, our 1EC evidence says that development solves extinction, it reduces vulnerability to conflict, pandemics, terrorism, crime, and a number of X risks, and it caps our resilience to conflict. No empirical studies are cited in 1EC evidence, so it's mistagged. Food wars, go nuclear, poverty, catalysts, political instability, in every aspect of mercury evidence. COVID does not bump it. Now is a unique crux moment due to climate change and development. More broadly, failed states. Defense does not apply because states do not have to totally fail to deck coordination in response to X risks. Yes, terrorism and bad. A single detonation causing nuclear drawings at the fog war. Building nuclear stealing, one symbol is their android evidence, topicality, MBI. Adopt, modifies clean energy policy, not market market-based instrument. We adopt a clean energy policy that includes an MBI. The text of the resolution is inserted. We meet topicality in the United States and the decarbonization definition. A, the policy, the plan adopts a clean energy policy in the United States. An executive memo is issued within the United States borders. B, the goal pairs commits to domestic decarbonization. C, extra topicality is not a voter. Several for international parts of the that violate counter-definition topic class need to aim for domestic decarbonization, not achieve it, which will be read by our definitions below. We meet and counter-definition adopt means to act in accordance with the plan. It requires no particular method. Like 24 adopts multiple definitions. These notices to act in accordance with the plan. Highlands of the plan cost police government environment. We see nothing regarding Highlands to engage in particular counter adopt this plan requires no method. Ranch course adopted. A policy is a course of action. Necessary 21 policies definition many Webster Lex law suggests a course of action. All sorts of courses, including constitutes a part of something else. Don't get 20 to the construction of the world includes set out including validation of specifications constitute a part of something else. Article 6 of the Paris Agreement includes a market-based instrument defined as putting a price on emissions to internalize the externality of emitting WGC 21 Article 6 Paris versus cooperative and NDC steps. IUOs based on MBI put a price of GHG internalize impact and follows the following blue base principle. 4 means in favor of. Smith 13. 4 means for the benefit of the American definition. 4 is benefit of action on behalf of in favor of. All means for the benefit of. Prefer 1 arbitrariness. The words of the resolution matter. Resolution meaning is the size constraint on topical interpretations because it's the only guiding thesis for pre-round prep. 2 after out. Only taxing and trading means the absence of the states, MGDs, fixed and their ex catalan. 3 topification of the Paris Agreement is the core of topical debates. 5 4 no negative offense be adopted. Limiting interpretation of MBI and clean energy policies economy-wide. Positive meaning by energy policies, counter national energy planning policy, broad investment on energy and overarching national strategy policy, the energy policy for national purposes, are limited focus enough in this edition. Regulatory actions under CAA and battery energy water energy policy. 5 reasonably competing in terms crowd out substance and create a race at the bottom. Advantage counterplan, predation to both, predation to the counterplan. It links to every net benefit because it clearly creates enough room to decimate LNG requirements and projects a larger trend away, which kills LNG expectations and Canadian oil. The counterplan cannot solve. It does not stop Trump from withdrawing from Paris Agreement, turns the United States into a laughing stock. It can't solve climate finance either. Momentum on that front is inextricable from the Paris Agreement and other climate agreements. Paris is key to leadership. McGrath, Twitter returns Paris is not closing power. Profound signals come by Paris. Means you will left the power. Lewis really means is no longer American first signals. Multilateral alive and well. CIL counterplan, permutation to the counterplan. Permutation. Actually, first CIL counterplan first. Permutation to the plan and the counterplan on other issues. The text is inserted in the document process. Specification over that the counterplan occurs over the plan is an additional function that we can permute. Process counterplans are a voting issue because they steal the entirety of the affirmative and they're unpredictable, which is a voting issue for fairness and education. Fiat is key. They have the ICJ recommend, not that Trump listen to it. Gross 24 Trump force. Possible buses completed. Buses 13 international agreements by Henry Kennedy. Rules speaking team. Trump says withdraw from Paris. Trump is a rip-off as a disaster. Immediacy is key. Trump will withdraw on January 20th. He doesn't listen to the ICJ. Replace 19 expectations. Trump's actions conclude. Withdrawing from Paris, certainty is key. Weak signals like an ICJ ruling raise questions about the United States commitment. 2024 because for weak signals raise questions about problems about conflict or Paris. No evidence. CIL is the status quo that solves. ICJ credibility is estimated by the fact that nobody listened to the Israel prosecutions. No spillover. One action does not create CIL. Neither does one ruling gladly tend to the office. Paris requires generous CIL with a few rights for Paris. Not clear how long it lose out from motivations, reasons, nations get publicly. Might not be true. There's secular required nations to act earlier. It's not clear how this arises. The plan solves. It ensures global governance occurs effectively, which is far better than international law. Courts counterplan permutation to both. Permutation to the counterplan cross-apply the policy definition from topicality above. Courts counterplans and ATM counterplans are bad on an energy topic where though there are no ATM keywords. Permutation to the plan and the counterplan on another issue. The text is inserted in the document. It solves to the same extent, and the warrants for why it's not intrinsic are the above. The policy formulation term. Now, the counterplan gets struck down or destroys a PQD, Fiskin, Chepsky. That's the government the government put in the lawsuit on 3 grounds: constitutionalities and non-justiciable requesting plaintiffs asking, and these speech that may cause imminence never been used to the road set on my civil war fighting Dartmouth 12. Entertaining political questions, constitutional and national defense, sports, result of focal elements, digital information, we see more than I get in the elements, not trading at all, and what is the risk, personal developing lookouts, and adjusting sonar both first, and the war fighting required courts to make a policy choice in events, nuclear war, crops, the 18 naval powers, and the police, responding to crisis, preventing them from metastasizing into conflicts, U.S. Faces great power competition, general Russia regressive, turning to naval ops, most activity coordination, protecting those interests must be ready, management, strategy, the tool, nuclear escape in comparison is likely to go from conventional fucking gun right, nuclear war moves to conventional less, moving more critical than sea power. They can't compel Trump because it's merely the court's counterplan. Certainty is key. A court ruling is not enough to compel Trump, and it'll send mixed signals to adversaries abroad. And the court ruling and the court decision takes far longer than a couple of days, which means that Trump will withdraw from Paris prior to the counterplan occurring. Classify every deficit from above. The DoD and others can check defense contractors, which proves that the courts are not key.
What are you doing?
Readiness defense?
It should be.
Okay. Their evidence is nonsense. No contracting. Other factors take rogue states. Military alarmist local rogue states. All family military busts in Iran and no code. Neither does major relocation requirements for containment. Not require the United States to maintain large forces, plenty of time to build up its sanctions and diplomatic forays. Fail. Doesn't take out our impact. Climate leadership is key as well. Candidate game. You get the policy formulation.
Yeah, I got it.
Permutation to both. Uniqueness counterpoints are a voting issue because they create arbitrary opportunity costs. And B, And even if Trump remains in Paris, he won't follow through on substantive climate commitments. Schmidt 24, and whether the bill Trump will remain in Paris as bargaining differentiates entirely unrelated to climate, Trump will remain in Paris and he will climate action to be unsatisfying in any sense, but better likely than full withdrawal. The reception of the plan is positive as well. Best 11-12, XM levels he would advise Trump out of Paris with reader. I don't think this stuff and starts to good for business. It creates a lot of U.S. exit would create global confusion, and also low oil prices are inevitable due to the energy transition. That's one easy evidence. Canadian middle power leadership is outdated and ineffective. Bad in 19. Canada rescue owners are not certain middle power without giving any vying forms of fields of numerous meaningless countries are preoccupied with international standards among many other, among any number without special visions. Something the other we see as we do. We need to work with others issue by issue and not assume the U.S. will want to lead. Canadian leadership decline is inevitable. Lang 19 will begin in first service Canada's middle power hints chiefly on these CA for sharply and reductions in size. Cut the card at size. Go to the LNGDA. Cross-apply the no-link argument from above. The plan continues status quo market trends, which means it does not usurp LNG. No link UD, despite 870 LNG interface intelligence is equal to the multi-million dollars suffered pressure setbacks, state uncertainty over supply, great loss on new export permits, and courts periodic key regular rule decisions for between the president and potentially impact all infrastructure delays spread in 2.3 million tons of supply. The industry is also oversupplied. We just provide how the EU is curtailing export buys. Go back to the courts catalog. British to adopt the plan by the catalyst method policy formulation. Fuel line of law the stages of proper formulation proposal adoption implementation formulation is creation of course of action adoption is choosing which alternative.
Permute the Canada thing.
On the Canada counterplan permutation to vote. I did.
Oh, sorry.
That's good.
I'm gonna send the text for the formulation for it.
We're good.
Cool.
Okay, so first question, your evidence that says that Paris contains a market-based mechanism says that there's 3 ways that this could look. 1 is an IMTO, which is based on an MBI. 2 is sustainable development mechanisms, and 3 is non-market approaches. Why would Trump choose the market-based approach?
That's not relevant.
What MBI is adopted by the plan?
Well, the resolution has adopt, modify clean energy policy, not market-based instrument.
But to
So
be
it's not a
clear,
topical
the
requirement
market-based
for the permit to
mechanism
adopt a market-based
contained
instrument.
in Paris, the plan does not adopt.
Well, the clean energy policy that the affirmative adopts includes a market-based instrument because Article 6 is itself a carbon trading mechanism.
Okay, and does the plan adopt Article 6?
Like, what does that even mean?
You just said you adopt an MBI because
No,
Article 6
I
is
in
the
fact
MBI.
clarified
Does
that
the
we do
plan
not adopt
adopt
a
and
market-based
enforce
instrument
MBI?
because it's not a topical requirement to adopt a market-based instrument.
Okay,
Article
understood.
6 is a
The
market-based instrument regardless
Court's
of the reading of that
counterplan,
evidence.
so this first deficit about strike down, how or why would the court strike down its own ruling?
First deficit about strike down?
Yes.
Okay, maybe I had a different interpretation of.
The Fisk evidence, the counterplan gets struck down, how?
I'm sorry, I'm just impact turning your net benefit about the PQD. You said PQD bad, we said PQD good.
Okay, you said it gets struck down or destroys the PQD, so
Okay,
I guess
I
why is
guess
that
it-
commensurable with
my bad.
PQD good?
The counterplan does not get struck down. It just destroys the PQD as your 1 and C evidence laid out. We impact turned that. We said
Sure.
overturning the PQD is in
Certainty
fact a bad thing.
deficit court rulings are enduring and last beyond one administration. Why is an order that only impacts the current administration more certain than a court ruling?
So you're asking about the difference with regard to the court's counterplan or customary?
court's
counterplan?
counterplan.
Oh, I see. Well, you would not have Trump come out and say or issue an executive memo, for instance, that explicitly lays out, hi, I'm gonna stay in Paris, right?
No,
That
I'm trying to
difference-
understand, like, you've said the plan is more certain. Why is it the case that an order that only binds the current administration is more certain than something that's enduring?
Okay, well, I think I did answer your question prior. However, more importantly, our affirmative internal links are about Trump withdrawing. It's more certain.
Okay, the
takes
counterplan
the
binds
form of
Trump
executive
such
summons.
that he cannot withdraw. So I'm confused what evidence you said thinks that he circumvents it.
It's a bind that occurs outside of the executive. That's the difference with respect to certainty.
Can you give an example of Trump refusing to enforce or comply with a court order?
Like, are we serious?
Yeah,
I mean,
like
the
give me
number
an
of
example.
times, in the number of times he's been like almost issued with contempt of court rulings and like.
I know, but after like the contempt of court was issued, he then like complied, showed up to his hearings. Can you give me an example of a Supreme Court ruling that Trump or his previous administration violated?
I
No.
mean, but
You
yeah,
can't?
he didn't comply with the subpoena in New York. You think that's a negative of his behavior when it comes to the Supreme Court as well? Like, there's no reason that he would not comply with New York if he would with the Supreme Court.
Keep repping.
there? One second.
No, we're.
There's no doc yet.
Yeah.
I assume there's cards.
Yeah.
If you're talking about one thing for 9 minutes and it's 19. Suspense is killing me.
I saw.
Oh my god. I got it maybe a minute ago? I'm not sure.
Well,
No, it was now. Yeah, Gmail's saying I got it now.
okay. Give me a second to open it. Did you download it?
Yeah, I did that one. What can we see?
I got it.
Yeah.
Northwestern, or good now.
Yeah. Very good.
Correct?
The counterfeit solves the entirety of the case. Look, Northwestern messed up in the 2C. This isn't just a general courts counterfeit. Our mechanism of solvency if are hyper-specific to climate change, and recycled quartz fails cars aren't going to cut it. The counterfeit does 4 things. 1, it liberalizes environmental standing doctrine to permit individuals to sue for emission-related harms. That immediately drowns polluters in a wave of litigation that sends a strong signal that private citizens will fight to keep us in Paris. 2nd, it establishes the constitutional right to a clean environment, and then holds that this right requires the U.S. to commit to Paris. 3rd, it holds that norms of customary law forbid unilateral and executive withdrawal from agreements, meaning the U.S. must remain faithful to its 2016 promise, and Trump cannot leave that. Independently solves the case. Judicial interpretations, the treaty law binding guiltless of any district, law of the state of the IC trigger, the king opinion by the effective treaty, over 20 treaty, the remaining treaty by the obligation of the Senate, that treaty, the body for obligations. 4, it issues an injunction against any government or private actor that acts in non-compliance with parents. 8, strongly negative. The combination of these points is more than sufficient, even if they fail individually, because it can also independently stop emitters from emitting, and does not need to solve leadership broadly, because it would still allow climate financing. The world compares the conflict to the status quo, not the plan, so it looks like an enormous shift towards climate leadership. It catechizes as a quote significant and quote effective normative shifting constraints political ranges. Chapter 21, judicial government, the climate consistency of effective innovations and a single government data, the issue of the division of knowledge and how the 3 engagement is treated, dialogue, judicial really central, the judicial video discovery version of the work of right, the stable climate knowledge process, we give us information, the serves as a checks on branches. Other branches follow on immediate government 18 since we're together, the complete report between goes the go 30, according to knowledge commitment, the motion outside we abide by the reason expect complaint factor first of being disavowed, the course of the devil comply with the record, this is the pressure to adhere to EC1 is do both. It fails. 1, causation. Standing will be denied because committing to Paris means there's no harm to remedy. Chapter 20, diffuse impact is out of a causation. This really regulate emission order causation out of a challenge emission media. This being regarded whether policy or substantial factor. 2nd is conflict. The perm rubber stamps congressional or executive action, so the dispute is depoliticized, and it's no longer court intrusion, which is the 1 in C Lang's evidence. 3rd is voidness. It's an advisory opinion prohibited by doctrine and ripeness, mootness, and infidelity. Validity states argument. The rate is not under hypothetical record of some data. Obviously, these virtue offenses related to taking no matter the judgment is subject to another range. 4, buck passing, breaking PQD, requires acting alone. The perm lich jurors dodge the question by masking the counterplans as deference to executive return. And then 16, despite returning PQD, could have just put her little questions on. Going yes, about little red is necessary to the word. The strict were politically struck to the ambiguous one. The make so nothing against some of court. We were saying but I think court government executive action for meeting tea leaves on it. Imagine Congress. 2AC2, just do the count with it severs, which is a voting issue for clashing ground. 1, it does not adopt anything instead of legislation or executive restraint, which they said the plan was. The Congress authorizes damages and expands standing to permit lawsuits that compel the plan. Adopt requires legislation vendors and adopt. We know a lot of critical argument is that nominees announced an act that blaming a protect environment. The court itself concludes in Act 11 and I-4 because the finding of context of body regular budget and legislative body with the already voted formally accept. To the extent that other branches agree, that's a solvency argument about follow-on, not a mandate of the council and judicial orders. Learn self-sufficient decision on something limited to court. No, the decision for one institution care. Directive 2, it's not a clean energy policy. Their 2EC court agrees. The 2EC definition of energy policy on T says it's presidential, congressional, not judicial. Followers of the divided as well, copies of national energy committee. See from active critics or through lawmaking policy. Made in both avenues. Policy is a noun, refers to legislative or executive lawmaking. New Zealand 14 policy defined the legislative power, executive power. They take the final action. Quote, it is not made by the courts, copies of policy, legislative body, statutory law. Made by agencies or courts or statutory interpretation. Evaluate competition through mandates, not effects. Anything else makes no counterpoint competitive because any action could result in the plan. For example, states could result in federal follow-on, but never mandates plan action. Prefer for their definitions. 1 is precision. Don't treat adopted policy as filler words that mean nothing. Each has a precise legal meaning and excludes the court. Second is limits. They blow the lid off the topic, allowing any tiny courts and agency app that skirts ground and morphs into unpredictable precedents. No abuse. They have to defend the most powerful Congress in the world on a topic where climate change literature is overwhelmingly apt. And the next argument is the policy proof. It is nonsense. This counterclaim because the courts are not in the policy process. Next argument. The next argument is agent counterclaim theory. No link. It's opaque, not an agent counterclaim. It's functionally competitive counterclaims. With federal agents are good. One is testing. It disproves the topic, making it predictable. And then core negative ground. That finds the best option. Then is fair. Any defensive topical action beats the counter. Second is neg flex. The topic is unlimited. Excluding agent counterclaims encourages district court or single agency asks that are possibility neg. Third is education. Short scene 8. New civil legislature judge over the constitutional policy for the judicial making later. Which is given time to do, but understand litigation later like scope. They're filled in with the central government and vertical scholarship right happening. All records more sophisticated understanding of the environment and the decision making in general. For air neg, non-resolution theory is arbitrary and affiliate aggressive. And the court's counterclaim is good, legitimate, real world, and provides ample left guard. Brovero 94. FT does not have policy issue, very policy 0. We're building a task of government not responsible and actually requires speech specific. Nature ability to position agent solvency line international counterclaim. With range counterclaim against massive knowledge of the versus operating relation to this will be real jurisdiction different groups body not including infographic planning ground. The both sides. The impact, perm other issues does not solve. One, Paris and climate policy are key, especially because solvency alone is a net benefit. It's a test case for political intrusion. Because climate solutions are exclusively an executive prerogative and have a historical side of judicial deference on constitutional challenges. There to see perm just says environment, not climate specifically, which is the one to see linked evidence. It's a bedrock political question tribe. Anti-climate news, target news, and lacking connection, probably do enter. The content of the like study because lacking climate housing country forward. Contradiction standing bedrock is what PQD predicts. Two, do both deficits apply? Claims only occur because of lack of government action, but inclusion of the plan prevents unfettered judicial remedies. Third is ripeness, target 90 has no controversy. Governance of the court, ripeness, stated by the court, disagreement. According to both sides, plaintiff was that submitted court summons decline the case. Independently, it's intrinsic and illegit. One is ground plan specific, eliminates all generics and impossible burden that encourages small cases and destroys standards. Second is logic. Textual competition distorts opportunity costs. With semantics and plan software, they could scramble or delete phrases to create unpredictable advantage templates or borrow words like not to functionally separate the plan, which makes the 2AC a moving target. Next argument is strike down. This is our argument. One, the covenant solves by expanding standing requirements so it would be constitutional. Second, destroying the PKD is the net benefit which greenlights it. The covenant unravels it. Compelling climate remediation is an explicit overstep that Juliana avoided and violates judicial commitments to defer climate policy and intersects with SOP, which is the linked evidence. NDPQD curbs defense corruption. Courts toss out liability suits because they're political questions. It's a universal medium to bar litigation against contractors, which is Eisenberg evidence. Next argument is warfighting. Concede Moeller. This zeroes hegemony because it says Russia, China, North Korea don't want to test US resolve, and leadership key is a sham. Unconstrained warfighting causes nuclear atom. And if you president is not logic, war, justification, president, no action, right president, what's that for? There's no continuous cards for recently about nuclear holocaust, restart movement, broad spectrum, the SEC, Iran, and developed nuclear. Press must be restrained. No impact in the Navy, who didn't hear no my colleague decides one or naval climate blockade. Was ultimately efficiency power, like equal to any future legislation, but no revolution. The Tracy power really impacts the world population, naval forces simply not suited for conquering territory. Next argument is Trump says no. One, he'll say yes. Or Grove and Gann's evidence was written about Trump and says that historically, he is absolute. Trump will back down in the face of powerful legal penalties, and cabinets and lawyers when forced to ruling air neg, even Nixon obeyed. Second, other branches check Congress, and agencies will follow the court because they fear for their job. Even if Trump can afford to act rash, senators, EPA staffers, and House committees can't afford to be in contempt of the court and will honor the ruling. Third, it solves better even if Trump opposes it. The plan looks transient. Sir, Trump stays in Paris now, but the country's assuming other presidents or Trump in the future can make a different decision. Creating a constitutional right to a clean environment is a far more durable signal, and it shows that the courts have a CNA 4 empirics. Fire 24 court. Trump would increase the net check with litigation to regular action rate and more than 24 rights were challenged and 150 or 20 since successfully the 192 races of work would against Trump and agency which the action force that could rule their citizen of crushing trouble and other people paid attention to the court and 3 times even over Trump judges even Trump next argument is certainty. It's fake. One, constitutional rulings are robust. The cabinet obligates every branch creating a new liability scheme for de facto prices on carbon and says that we should uphold to Paris, which is the one to see evidence. But it is offense and partisanship makes the plan impossible. McNeil 13 comment. The law against partisan liability for attacking every we've regulatory capacity. But committee doesn't come into jurisdiction formalization needs like that's what right. It's bodies and actual region but every channel completely issue course. They make what nature to new provision. Said the breaks of force compliance and circuit law. Judicial action is more certain for private parties, which are natural litigation, private party policy mitigation, legal and plain field over common policy mitigation made investor no longer common. In fact, properly leading hard rules and saying the leading doctrine for investor and the plan of long-term mitigation according to recession necessary litigation work with deliberate hard public interest views because of process not policy benefit. There's no way to undo preventing certainty. There's no impact. The process is irrelevant because the outcome is a binding ruling that businesses and the government must follow. Delay is wrong. The counterclaim is fiated immediately. The Supreme Court can announce the ruling at any time, but they are rapid. Freeman and 20 Justice. They try not to be rushed to capacity, move quickly, conclude run the clock work. And single with this active phase, Watergate quickly. The Waterhouse was off guard and able to work on court issue briefly, recently, and tried quickly. The court interpreted reasons heard majority petition court. First case adopted by flight through the court. Credibility is an advantage to the counterplan. The plan is inaction and executive self-restraint, but allows Trump to use big stick diplomacy to continually threaten aggressive judicial, threaten climate withdrawal. But the counterplan is aggressive judicial enforcement that politically beats Trump into submission. That means it solves better because it looks like the government is long-term committed. I've inserted highlightings of multiple 1AC cards that say words are sufficient. Then it's a reputational cost, which was in cross six. This also is true for advantage two. Gaston says that expectations and quote the looming threat of withdrawal deter, but they do not absolutely feel club the globalism is starting 20 litigation chain conferencing that make trusting comment particularly invested interest in government structure commitment subject to international country argument in the litigation and the U.S. and China country will respond to determine Muslim liability. The next argument is contractor all causes conceded that contractors bankroll endless interventions, diplomatic fractures and arms racing. So the U.S. incentivizes aggression, so their defense is not applied, which is the evidence. Here's another McVeigh 19 PMC, but instance in global Nigeria, Ukraine, Syria, Iraq, Middle East, wars still fight. Iraq, Latin America, Africa, Russia, fighting during the war, Western Russia, mission fighting for both sides of the Ukraine conflict. There are so higher reversers.
Mark that card at mercenaries.
How much time do we have?
92.
8:46, after we took some more time to get the 2AC ready.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
I've got one question and then I'm gonna take the rest as read. So this Pacell card that you read that says, to the extent other branches agree, there's a solvency argument about follow-on, judicial orders aren't self-fulfilling. Could you explain this argument?
So there are two ways the counterplan solves. The first
No, I don't
one
care
is
about that. I'm sorry, I'm really curious about the part that says judicial orders aren't self-fulfilling. Why is that
As
true?
far as you go for competition in the one air, like this is a process counterplan and treating every mandates and process, we read a card that says the counterplan is not fiat the plan or judicial follow-on, which means that the counterplan competes off of mandates.
So, wait. So who would follow on to the
Trump, Congress, like everybody.
Okay, and, okay, cool, that's all I need, thank you. So, why does overturning the PPD like solve war fighting?
To be clear, you conceded this and you explicitly said that we would be
We're
right.
just confused about the.
The one scene that benefits says that
Yeah.
courts avoid political questions over the military and contracting because it's perceived as a national security issue. Unraveling the PQD, similar to your warfighting net benefit, would allow litigants to sue the military and private contractors, which would deter their usage. It's the same reason you have a link to the net benefit. Or-
Wait, the timer I had going? Oh, wait, yeah, no, I'm right, yeah.
Is everyone good for the order?
Yeah, since the doc seems to lag anyway, we may as well go with the order first.
Wait, before you give the order, I'm gonna hit the restroom. I'm just, sorry. I'm gonna get a lot of water.
I see the document in the email.
Oh, I don't know. I'm scrolling through our records though.
Oh, yeah. It's like sent.
Oh.
You have 2 teams of records?
Are they faring?
We have no idea.
Okay.
Hey, you can look at it.
Order is Canada DA, customary law counterplan, the LNG DA, the advantage counterplan, the courts counterplan, and then T.
Alright, I've got 3 pages of courts counterplan. You wanna narrow down where we're going?
The very last.
The very
just
last
plus on
argument.
it.
Okay,
The
so
very
at the
last.
bottom, we're not going back to something. Okay.
Yeah, Canada.
Yeah.
Customary law counterplan, LNG DA, the advantage counterplan, courts, T. Everyone's good?
No, I have to. Oh, I see, sorry.
Okay. Conceded Canadian multilateralism fails and means there's no impact not going for the customary law counterplan. Perm to both is a test of competition. Conceded not going for process. Counterplan 3 is answered by Asian good. Course counterplan is not processed because it's an Asian counterplan. Go to the natural gas D. Concede that there's no links in the plan doesn't spur anything and there's no impact. The advantage counterplan conceded both is a test of competition. There is reason to reject the argument, not the team. The courts counterplan all causes as an assumed sweeping litigation against PMC. So too easy assertion is nonsense. The last argument was perm due the process of policy formulation. It's incoherent. The counterplan isn't a policy. Refusing topical action in favor of judicial damages. They probably mean do the counterplan and the plan no matter what, which is answered by our answers to do both. If it means anything else, is vague and shifting, rejected, and moving targets are regarding and encourage sandbagging, which directs clash. The card they read says nothing, just that policies can be created in different ways. That doesn't assume debate, where certain combinations are intrinsic for severance, where the one are inevitably re-explained and we get new answers. Use offense, defense. We have a deficit, otherwise triad equals negative for any chance of the form links to do both answers. T. 2AC1 is they mean because they adopt ROM, they violate. Page says that the MBI must mandate a price-based or quantity-based instrument that legally stops submitting the act as a voluntary agreement where countries or the US can write by Paris, which violates and is explicitly included. Voluntary approaches are non-market. CGIR 824. Non-market approaches include voluntary contributions by governments. In the context of the act, this is important. 1, they've said that Paris includes MBIs under Article 6, but Article 6 does not mean our version of MBI because they cannot be voluntary as per 180 page. WGC explicitly says Article 6 is voluntary. WCG 21 Articles of Paris refers to voluntary cooperative when NEC establishes the cooperations. 2, none of the voluntary mechanisms meet our version of market mechanisms. It includes 3. 1, something called internationally transferred mitigation outcomes, which are based on MBIs but not MBIs because they aren't carbon tax capture. 2, sustainable development goals, not MBIs. 3, non-market based approaches. Paris does not mean their own interpretation. Prefer 1 grammar article. 6, in this context modifies and precedes MBI. It says adopt a clean energy policy, including market-based instrument in the US. Adopt modifies the entire statement, including the conjunctive phrase, including MBI. Even if it doesn't, they drop our definition of in the US. It means it must be under the jurisdiction of the US. Paris includes possible market-based mechanisms, but none of those mechanisms are implemented in the US by the plan. So the clean energy policy that they adopt in the US does not include an MBI in the US. 2, logic. The act does not adopt a new MBI in the United States, but is reliant on foreign nations voluntarily implementing their own market policy. 3, ground. Non-enforcement kills dealings by affirming the status quo and makes linked to uniqueness unstable. Every net generic rates, gas, oil, D, electricity prices, and any specific industry D assume that the act ushers in market mechanisms for decarbonization or adopts renewable energy transition, but they don't require it. Net ground precedes act ground, since net ground is the impetus for app innovation for limits. There are infinite actors compliance could rely on from business voluntary complying like policies like aviation Innovation Data Centers Biotechnology, and every country that acts under international climate agreement, there's dozens of international agreements that they can propose and enter them without adopting market mechanism that they can take. They can enter an agreement with the EU to link cap and trade scheme, but instead of adopting a cap and trade scheme, simply linking California's scheme to the EU, which doesn't actually adopt a market-based mechanism policy, but only a clean energy policy concerning market mechanisms. Kyoto and the UN framework for the Convention on Climate Change and the Ozone Treaty all include proposals for taxes and carbon trading mechanisms. Means that they can enter those, but since they're voluntary, not actually adopt them and read nebulous advantages about international leadership or multilateralism. It justifies international pressure acts like compelling China to enforce their cap and trade or lowering trade barriers for other countries that adopt market mechanisms. That means any versions of the conditions or threatened counterplan topple affirmatives because they can all include clean energy policies, but compel other countries to adopt the market-based mechanisms without the U.S. Limits outweigh. MBI is the only constraint since adopt CEP decarbonization are meaningless, expanding the topic of research creating prep asymmetries that favorably act and push the net to uneducational extremes. They say decarbonization in the U.S. refers to U.S. jurisdiction alone, and decarbonization means reducing fossil fuel competition under that jurisdiction. They violate by reducing emissions globally. There are 195 different countries, each emits different energy mixes, and each houses different set of emitting industries. The combination of any incentive that the U.S. can create and remedial any action, including for an act that can take it quite literally infinite combinations before our definitions. Their definition of including is from a lawyer arguing for a case, but it does not say that they won the case or that it was codified as an interpretation, and it's imprecise. The next argument is the including mandates and inclusion of an MPI. They plainly violate CWG. Evidence defines MPI as an adoption for meeting the plenary support, but non-market approaches are an equally valid option. We read Blue WTG. Article 6 we established 3 options. MPI 3 says single development and 3 non-market-based approaches. We're the most precise and debatable topical aspects to a clean energy policy, which itself must be a mandate in a market-based instrument. Their interpretation is asked must merely do a CEP. And examples of that CEP that acts include market-based instruments, even if the phrasing is technically grammatically ambiguous. Their interpretation is contrary to common sense. There's no particular reason to conform it. You can interpret the resolution our way. You must. They render the phrase MPI and the resolution literally meaningless, as apps have no particular need to mandate them, and every strategic incentive defines CEPs that would not result in an increase of MPIs. That turns the topic to a race towards minor repairs for any of the 15,000 energy policies on the books, making any hope of many phrases using including are vague, which requires them to be interpreted in the context resolution debate. Don't have list examples for fun, but instead provide burdens for topical plans. Adam 16. All red fruits including major studies will don't include and including his media videos and views, including interest something can provide in a prison language and other occasions, including the all music decide which interest consider the purpose of the clause that now codified by adjective to business the full including all can continue nowadays and modified naturally depends on the nature of the adjective, including means more than the minimum cover, further would include it means having things and some others well that violates surpluses. They make every CEP also an MPI can 18 any of their protocol words and be ignored to violate the cardinal rules requires all terms to be given the meaning and no terms be read to floors. C2 is arbitrariness. We agree that each word in the resolution matters, but they must modify each other. The most logical reading of the resolution is that clean energy policies can be broad, but for the topic, they must be decarbonization in the US and an MPI. They are worse in a big case. The meaning of the terms that we've defined, 2AC3 is off-ground, no overlimiting. 1 carbon tax, we allow industry-specific and varied design, which is independently sufficient and includes a plethora of apps that give banking, data centers, shipping, formal construction, military, crypto, aviation, biofuels, ag, and lodging taxes. They can also define mechanisms like BCA fit, revenue abatement, and then UBI. 2 is cap and trade. They can affect a wide variety of cap and trade mechanisms. 0 broken cap and trade acts make advantage ground right. They say topic education. There's no link. 1 Paris is included in our interpretation. Pricing CET both move it closer and being next solved. 2 ad hoc. The topic was not Paris. It was markets. CEP must change energy. But 24. Reasonability is an arbitrary cause of judgment. Intervention feels fairness. They're not reasonable if they write the topic in the combination of all reasonable arguments. Exposed limit, no crowd of winning. T-proof substance was impossible. T debates are good. They increase legal education. T nuance competing interpretations cause a reason the topic encouraging best practice. Oh, read that card. CEP support clean green alternatives and suffice oil and gas use. Market oil and gas use.
time?
1:58.
I just didn't, that's why I wanted to make sure someone had.
That's, you had the same, yeah.
I was near that, but my
Cool.
timer was still running, so I wasn't 100% sure.
Yep.
Okay, there are several docs set now.
Should be.
Let's do it.
The first advantage, the leadership advantage. The finance advantage. Topicality. And then the what's counter plan. We're on,
Give me 2 seconds.
yeah.
Sorry, I forgot there were 2 docs set. Okay.
Cool. All good? U.S. leadership is key to deter converging revisionist threats from Russia, China, Iran, North Korea, signs of retreating by testing U.S. resolve to cause nuclear conflict. Multiple leaders as House and Beckley did not assume interlocking adversary threats, and yes, there's governance impact shifts away from liberal order collapse systems, cooperatively resolve international threats, which cause extreme violence, image proliferation, and emerging tech that's Beckley and Samson, which means any risk of a deficit to the counterplan means that the app is huge because they have an answer at the finance advantage, food wars, go nuclear poverty, catalyze the political instability in every hotspot, that's Muffrey, and they don't have defense to it. The courts count, top count. We meet their interest in top-calorie violation, misreads the resolution, their definitions say top labs must adopt a clean energy policy, which includes market-based instrument. Top labs do not have to adopt an MBI. The plan adopts a clean energy policy, maintaining our commitment to the Paris Agreement. Paris includes a market-based instrument. 1. Article 6 creates an emissions trading scheme. NDCs for the cabin countries can trade credits to meet their obligations. Case 24, Article 6 establishes emission trading market-based after the last high convention generated by one country transferred to another country. NDC contribution. Second is Paris includes MBIs because it governs the MBIs of the U.S. and other countries have implemented under Paris obligations. Already 20 in Paris, NDCs 81 countries now international carbon while meeting commitments. Article 6 outlines the scope of new market mechanisms, detailed linking domestic actions with international co-op. Voluntariness does not matter. Voluntary carbon markets are adoptable app under your interpretation. It still governs MBIs. That includes while it might include non-MBI mechanisms, it gives countries a choice between them, and their cherry picking of evidence is not articulate of what Article 6 actually says. That is how an MBI works anyway. Under a carbon tax, companies could technically just pay the tax and emit anyway. That is what distinguishes an MBI from command and control. So the voluntary distinction does not have an implication for their limits or ground office, but existing other MBIs in other countries and domestically are included under that framework. So we obviously still need it, and our evidence says that an MBI internalizes the externality of emissions, which means that our stuff agrees with their We adopt a policy in the United States that is adopted by Trump. The scope of what it includes matters. MBI is not modified by the U.S., but we need the RGGI between California and Quebec is domestic and is included under Paris now. Paris commits to domestic decarbonization as well. The limits case for this does not matter. It is not our fault how the resolution is written. Their thing about the ASTOP being an MBI does not apply. Including means it still has to be a part of the clean energy policy, which checks back against any offense group. The including violations, including means to constitute a part of. That's the 2EC evidence. The Adams card is meaningless. To use grammar terms, the clean energy policy that AST must adopt is modified by the participle phrase, including a clean energy policy. That only requires that the app adopt a clean energy policy, which includes an MBI. No surplusage violation. TEPs must include an MBI, but how that occurs is left unspecified by the resolution, which is not no result of our app, but a way that the resolution was written. Sorry that we're clever. Arbitrariness, voting negative has no resolutional basis. It is tantamount to letting negative decide the topic in the 1C. Resolutional meaning with a side constraint on topical interpretation because it's only guiding cases. Without it, neither the app nor neg can predict arguments. It turns limits to ground. If you don't care about arbitrariness, you should vote for the counter interpretation. Only our app is T and it solves limits. Limits and ground are relevant if we're correct about with the way the resolution should be read grammatically. Substance means nothing. It's not if it's not predictable. And surplusage, I entered above, but adopts still modifies the clean energy policy. The use of MBIs is historically distinct feature of the UN climate regime, including the Paris Agreement. So R24 relying on any other facilitated mitigation of its distinct feature UN climate regime with the Paris Agreement, market instruments created under Article 6 literature. Surveys proved mailing 18 the survey of living case studies MBIs
support Article 6, both your experience highlights the importance of becoming ITM. Transfers. 1. We agree with our interim of MBI. Second, economy-wide clean energy policy. They continue this interim MBI punishes polluters that locks in econdensate and fuel mixes as for the purposes of their limits ground. Third is functional limits. We calculate the safe harbor and Bregs counterclaim due. Sol, California cap and trade on RGGI for disproof reaction. State CBANs are legal and are protectionist, and Fiat tells leadership theory does not check because the resolution it says federal government. The court's counterclaim. The purview of the counterclaim, third Fiat solves partisan circumvention. Purview of the counterclaim cross-text specifies normal means to executive self-restraint, but it doesn't mean we're committed to it. I said most likely the counterclaim is an example of the plan and adopts. The policy adopt does not require a particular path. Policy is course of action. The policy adoption is legislation or executive action for the context is that the resolution of words together in a consensus definition view. 24 policy adoption final states policy practice by differing emphases for text and to operational definition of policy adoption typically through legislative and accurate executive orders. It's about a statute, 11.9, the plain statute, the language of the statute, the word adopted judicial orders are an example of policy. Valor does not have an intention to exclude, even if any action could result in the plan. That is a question of agent standards. 1. Agency counterclaim. Agent counterclaims are bad. They don't exist on an energy topic, which takes out ground. It's not core ground. We're in a fuel mix. CA next Lexus all by conditionality. Agent basis. That's like politics. Career education. Provide education. That's a standard. Non-resolutional theory. Literature on the energy topic is about the energy mix, not the agent. Second is precision is wrong. Our evidence is better on this question. I did that above. Third, limits is not unique. Executive agencies or courts can do anything that Congress can. Now, the impact for Mueller does not take out the adverse scenarios about U.S. climate leadership. It means U.S. is perceived as having allied resolve that's agnostic on actual military capabilities, which Mueller is about. Now, the PQD term, the DoD can constrain contractors from being corrupt. War fighting is good abroad in order to deter adversaries. That's the apt impact. But Miller does not take this out either. It says, quote, it does not require the U.S. maintain large forces. Obviously, that is not the internal link to naval power. It's not about how big forces are, but the capabilities in the Navy specifically. The PQD is good. Political questions have consequences for naval defense. The Twin Sea bewilderingly dropped the internal link. Courts are unequipped for results foreign policy. Evidence army units and naval fleets would stop training with checks. Diplomatic missions personnel need to be adjusted to lookouts for adjusting sonar. That caused nuclear war. Naval powers have we stopped crises abroad. China's beating rest in the SES being strong subs and one to deter an invasion of Taiwan. That's why the PQD would require the court's render decision. Their defense does not apply. It's only about the law case. There's no reliable empiricism. Does not assume solar, but they read cards, so I will. It prevents Arctic conflict. King 24 Arctic priority green power competition. Trade routes and types of the U.S. Of course, not that the efforts time to arrest your bull's up. No waves within the middle strength of his versus crucial priority for fighting hydrogen that will help U.S. solidify deterrence. U.S. of course should be anchored and expectedly traded. Warfighters goes nuclear clear 20 Arctic because of possibility nuclear mutual annihilation of essentially grounds for the first use of nukes, market nukes, and delay deficit on the counterclaim or truancy competition evidence says judicial orders not self-executing. That means Trump still has time to withdraw from Paris, which just makes climate leadership. I'm going to finish the card. I marked it at first. Use of nukes because Moscow has contributed to the nuclear capability of public defense that any U.S. nation expects to combat with using Russian nuclear arsenal in 1970 early days.
Can you send the Tracy Muller card out as a minor prep?
The Tracy Muller?
Oh, yeah. Sure.
Oh, sorry. I got
No.
sorry.
It's just, yeah. Northwestern today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She sent out.
I sent it out.
Um,
Sorry, there is a card?
yeah, I think it's like one. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Okay, Brovero.
The counterplan is more certain, clear, and more durable than the plan at Northwestern, has mishandled every other solvency mechanism in the counterplan, so this is a crush. I'll start on doing the counterplan because it is cut and dry. 1. Clean energy policy must be the President or Congress, which was their 2AC card, and the Yingling card from the 2NC that says that the courts agreed, concede their 1-year leave evidence. This is neg and says that adoption must be legislative or executive, but it does not say that it must be the court. 2nd, this mandates conceded that the counterplan does not fiat the plan, or else would it exclude all counterplans, because it exclude things like states and follow-on. I'll do our offense first. 1 is precision. Our evidence has an intent to define is grounded in court jurisprudence. Then has topic consensus behind it in the context of energy policy and says that nationwide energy policy must be enforced and enacted by the executive or Congress, which they have agreed with via the 1-year record. 2nd is limits. Dropped. If it isn't a counterplan, it's an app. And the Greenlight Infinite Agency apps and the small district courts have to have no TAs to it and would proliferate and make them being impossible. Those are explicitly impossible. First argument is that our definition does not have an intent to exclude 1. Just an assertion. Our evidence explicitly says grounded in both the AP and court ruling that it's just the executive and legislative, and it cannot be judicial action independently. They specified that the plan would explicitly be executive non-enforcement, so they do not get takesies backsies. The first piece of offense is agent counterplans. It is an easy way out because it conceded multiple things. 1, no link. It's an enforcement pick that uses the court. 2nd, it's conceded testing and finds the best policy action, and any defense of Congress or topical action solves because Congress is the most overpowered branch of the government. 2nd is neg flex must outweigh topics. The topic is already unlimited. There are infinite substance and mechanisms that apps can be asked for their T arguments on in the 1AR, which means that this is the only functional limit on the topic. Assertions that agency are not key is just a complete miss by Northwestern. We have read a card about this topic that says that judicial action is a core central question about whether we should have court action that mandates the climate change reduction or because of political action based in Congress and the executive. 3rd is education. Both Chihansky and Brovero say that the judicial adjustments, especially in the context of climate and debate, are critical to gain real world skills and education reflect reality way more or more predictable and are better to learn about separation of powers, which is a net benefit that was totally dropped in the 1AR. Now, debatability and education must outweigh this topic, and SOP are unique, and precision is ad hoc at best, and there's no bright line, which was above. They've also conceded that any other interpretation eliminates DAs, that makes apps way too small because there's no link uniqueness on this topic. Now, the net benefit, solvency, is a net benefit and was completely dropped. 1 is partisanship. McNeil says that, quote, every committee in Congress and every agent under the plan would try and hollow it out and send a signal that would be bad, but they've also conceded that judicial action is more certain and, quote, golden for investors than other countries. Bosarbe says that it would compel governments toward, quote, an international framework, and name drops India, the US, and China. John says that it would advance knowledge, engagement, and create the right to check climate change. 2nd is signaling, also dropped, made a big deal about it. Then cross-ex, the plan is more uncredible. It cannot add to lead and feel like Trump, which means that throughout Trump's entire presidency, he would threaten to roll back the pull out of Paris, which means that the plan is inaction and restraint is far worse, but the counterplan would mandate a constitutional right to climate change. Then judicial enforcement is just way better, which was there when you see highlightings of things like the Scandal evidence that says that words are sufficient to trigger the case. Now, the net benefit debate proper. 1, Bowler takes out the case and this should make you very skeptical of any deficit or net benefit because they read a card that says revisionist countries are way too busy to deal with international issues and do not want to go to war. Our impact was about climate leadership is a total sham because the internal link of climate leadership still gets to readiness. Second is that they conceded the net benefit, so it must outweigh 1, trial day, unchecked PMCs and tune the globe, and interventions in belligerent foreign policy that accesses the case faster and more unpredictably because it increases chances. The hotspot escalation, especially because current cold spots like the Middle East, Latin America, and Africa would be exacerbated in a world where PMCs are able to operate. Independently makes arms control impossible, which encourages nuclear arms So you see, which is the Apollo and McVeigh evidence. Second, Mueller conceded there. So you see, impact defense, they do not want to test U.S. resolve now, which means that we have straight turned the case. Only belligerent U.S. action causes via PMC's election escalation. Third, warming follow-on of the plan and changes listed above means that the net benefit must outweigh. Now, I'm going to do the deficit at the bottom first before I do the warfighting impact turn. Delay is 0. Conceded every Grove and Gaines card that Trump would decide to back down. Conceded a 24 card that says that Trump is actively listening to the courts and every other part of the government will also perceive it, which means that the effect of the counterplane should be immediate. They don't have a short-term delay deficit because even if there was some sort of withdrawal from Paris, the court would immediately decide to enforce it independently. Every other solvency argument above should totally tank this because the counterplane is way better long-term, so you should ignore short-term benefits. If we make Paris more binding and more credible, then the long-term also conceded that the court can act in emergency and act in days, if not hours, which means that the counterplane is just as fast as the plan and way better than executive inaction, which is the freedom of evidence. Now, the war-fighting turn. 1, it is bad. Nuclear war, unconstrained presidents start war with impunity that all have the potential to go nuclear. An Iranian president could intervene by striking North Korea, China, Russia, or the Middle East. Every war the U.S. enters increases the chances of conflict. Restraint is the best solution, since if the U.S. never enters regional conflicts, they do not go nuclear. Second, the turns are often about deterrence, and it causes overstretched congressional oversight. Is that better because it ensures the U.S. enters conflicts when it is only a wise decision? Second is naval power is useless. The best version of it, blockades, but those fail. They don't force enemies. There's no successful example. In modern conflict, and naval forces can't conquer territories, which is necessary for forced surrender, which is the Huda evidence. This is also just a contradiction with the case. The case said that leadership and readiness were the two things that stop adversaries from ever escalating. So they don't get to say all the time that Navy is the make or break, because every other card in the case would disagree with that. The Arctic internally and impact were both new. You should strike them off your flow. Tweezy, you should have read it. And it's the first affirmative rebuttal, not the constructive, in letting them stand back. Let some restart debate in the 1 year. But it doesn't link. If Arctic involvement is prudent, then Congress would authorize the war. But if the U.S. never enters the Arctic, then it's not better, since the only way it would ever start the U.S.-Russia war is if the U.S. entered in the first place, unilateral executive belligerency. And PMCs make it more likely because companies like Raytheon and Lockheed are way more likely to push for war in a world where they have more authority. Kang is bad. It's a naval lieutenant, which means it's biased towards the efficiency of naval power. There's no impact to Arctic war. We should go to 24 future. Circular cooperative behavior. Arctic nothing not increase on non-active interest and sales leading. The military growth and not no previous communication and not interrupted. Shows stability. Here's retreat. No strong enough offset tension. Military station COVID-3. No strong Arctic good treaty support. Not escalation precision rudder. Military cooperation and Arctic stable. Lastly, there's no uniqueness for this term. If they are correct that getting rid of the PQD is sufficient, the status quo should cause their impacts because the PQD has existed for years. So there's only a risk that PMCs are able to stop conflicts from escalating from the U.S.
158 starting.
You should vote aft. We've impact turned their net benefit, and to the extent that you're uncertain about whether this Mueller card that we read in the 2AC takes out our turn and the case, we have an external delay deficit that the counterplan cannot resolve because there is an interbranch conflict that ensues directly after the counterplan because Trump is going to fight tooth and nail against the court order that the counterplan issues. Now, I'm going to extend the delay deficit at the top because it's external to the net benefit mess. There are two reasons for delay that would ensue after the counterplan. First, the court order would take a ton of time to be litigated. There would need to be a test case for the court to establish a bunch of precedents. They need oral argument about the various planks that the counterplan contains, and they need to write a decision after. Two, Trump is going to fight tooth and nail because he hates the idea of signing and ratifying the Paris Agreement, which his Democratic predecessors love. This all needs to be resolved in 2 days, which is the bar for establishing climate leadership. If Trump does, in fact, withdraw from the Paris Agreement, then it would decimate climate leadership. The first term resulted in ripples, but now it's going to result in tidal waves, which means that if he ends up withdrawing from the Paris Agreement, then it would obliterate the chance for the United States to coordinate response to global governance issues and also deter our adversaries like the Gang of Four. There are no reasons to PMCs go nuclear, but you know that there are two uncontested case impacts. The first is global governance. A number of existential risks like artificial intelligence, pandemics, migration, etc., all have the potential to cause extinction, and only global governance and the ability of the United States to coordinate with external actors and revitalize the liberal order has the ability to solve that. Two, we need a belligerent foreign policy to deter the Gang of Four. Russia and China are aggressive right now because there's a closing window of opportunity, and they're going to decline and fade into irrelevance in the long run, which means they're going to try and attack the United States and take over the liberal order in the short term. The only way to combat that, according to our Beckley and our Haas evidence, is to ensure that the United States has strong power projection. Their two attacks against their solvency deficit are the following. Their two solvency pieces of offense are about partisan circumvention. Durable fiat solves that. It's the first argument that Veronica makes in the 1AR, which means that there's no reason why executive self-restraint would look weird. The delay deficit turns their case offense about certainty and signaling because interbranch conflict between Trump and the courts would eviscerate the certain signal that the courts would bestow and the signaling of judicial action. Now, I'm going to answer the net benefit. Which is predicated off of our impact turn. The tiebreaker is whether or not courts are equipped to handle foreign policy. They are not. United States naval power is key to prevent Arctic conflict. New maritime trade routes require strong naval forces to offset Russian and Chinese efforts to rule the waves. Naval training and warfighting is key. The high operational speed of warfighting requires strong and flexible capabilities in the midst of a conflict which requires training. That's Kang evidence. That is not accessed by the 2AC Mueller defense. That card is explicitly about the size of forces, which is not our internal link. Our internal link is about naval training capabilities, which the PQD would upend. It means that courts would be able to veto every time the executive wants to engage in some naval training operation, which decks the state of our readiness, and it's totally separate from the size of our forces. The quality of our deterrent is not about the number of troops we have, but instead about their quality, and the only way to make sure that there's a quality deterrent is if we have adequate naval training. The PKD is key to that. Dropped. Arctic conflict goes nuclear. Russia has concentrated a large part of its retaliatory capability on the Kola Peninsula. Any reduction in U.S. naval capability would ensure that Arctic conflict goes nuclear and that our adversaries in the high north would aggress. That outweighs our magnitude because our report says that it's most likely grounds for first use. If a conflict happens, the only way to make sure that we can prevent it from happening is if our Navy can respond quickly enough to make sure that it does not escalate. That's required evidence. Their defense is terrible. It does not consider our internal link, which is actual capabilities, not just about resolve. It is not conclusive. It only says that it is stable for the time being, but it does not assume a fast and imminent scenario for escalation in a world where we have reduced naval capabilities that Russia will take advantage of. There's no contradiction between our naval power impact and the affirmative. We said climate leadership good, and then we said that naval leadership is also good. It's a straight turn to the net benefit. I don't understand why those are intention. They said that Arctic war only escalates if we start it. That is wrong. PAR is about Russian first use because they know that the United States' success in the Arctic would threaten their entire arsenal. PMCs are not likely to push for war. This is defense to their net benefit. It is not grounded in evidence. It is not about the Navy, and there is no reason why the scenario is external at all because there's no reason that a private military contractor has the ability to launch a nuclear weapon. Even if they mobilize the United States to be a little bit more belligerent, that is a good thing in the short term because it ensures that we have a more adequate deterrent of Russia and China. That's all of our 1AC cards like Beckley and Haas. Paying evidence is not bad. Being a naval lieutenant makes it more credible. Our other evidence is from more diverse sources. Their stuff is from professors who obviously have less knowledge about the Navy. GU explained why the Mueller card takes out the affirmative, but not how it takes out the Navy turn. The Navy turn outweighs the net benefit. Arms control is irrelevant. Russia has the largest nuclear arsenal, so only that conflict achieves the biggest magnitude. The other things were not articulated as going existential at any point. Veronica did answer the net benefit. She said, quote, the DoD can constrain contractors from being corrupt. That matters because it means that private military contractors are not going to go rogue even in a world of the political question doctrine because the DoD and other executive agencies can ensure that they make responsible decisions, and the DoD won't hire them if they think that it would result in a bad foreign policy decision. We have some defense to their thing about the PNC, and they have none to ours, especially because the courts are not well equipped to manage foreign foreign policy crisis. Arctic cards are justified, Veronica justified them. They read impact defense, which we get to answer with evidence as well. It's not sandbagging. It was 2 single cards that we read in the 1AR. After the Tweezy read a couple of cards, there was a DA to a counterplan. There's no fairness impact to this either. You need defense, and we are granting you new answers to our scenario. The big tiebreaker for all of this, as I mentioned above, is about whether or not courts are well equipped to handle foreign policy crises. If they are not well equipped to handle foreign policy crises, then they're going to curtail the authority of PMCs, or they're going to curtail the authority of executive agencies to coordinate with private military contractors in a way that is detrimental to our warfighting capability. Courts are idiots. The Supreme Court majority and a bunch of the federal judiciary has no experience with regulating foreign policy or international crises at all, because the political question doctrine has reigned supreme for decades. If that is in fact true, then overturning the political question doctrine would mean that courts are in charge of foreign policy, which would both signal to adversaries that our deterrent is weak, and also they would mismanage foreign policy decisions, which would mean and invite Russia and China to invade.
The next